how does a firm get where you get one deal, then you get two deals? It begins to become circuitous, doesn't it? Where good things happen and good things keep happening.
Well, it's probably a boring answer, but the answer is hard work. And the things that you see now are the product of, in some cases, years and years of effort, both by the client and in some cases by us.
By the hard work, I want you to take away the stereotype of M&A that the media has, sort of the simplistic romance of it. What's behind the scenes that we don't see?
Well, the role of strategy. Companies spend a lot of time, and we pride ourselves on focusing particularly on the right strategy, not just the execution of it. Lots of investment banks walk in and basically say, tell us what you want to do, and nobody can do it for you better than we can. That's okay, but that's not our approach. Our approach is to think through what is the right thing to do, whether it takes a year or two or three to reach the right conclusion, and then to proceed to execute.
How many employees now?
We have about 650.
Okay. Everybody thinks it's you and three other people.
Well,
I mean, focus. That
was 16 years ago.
Those other people do a lot of grind work, mathematical grind work, then to back up that strategic vision, right?
Well, it's a lot more than that, Tom. I mean, we have 59 partners, and a whole series of them are extraordinarily experienced and veteran partners and investment bankers, and this is 16 years ago when we started, there were three people in a phone booth, but that's not the case today.
Critical question. I know it's tacky to say. What about Lubrizol, or what about AT&T, who you represent, or who you advise, I should say, with T-Mobile? The word that popped up this week is duopoly. When you get into a low nominal GDP, hyper-competitive environment like SiriusXM and others, by definition, do you squeeze it down almost like an Andrew Carnegie, almost down to duopolistic mergers where it's just two players left in every industry?
Well, I'm not going to comment, Tom, on the regulatory approval process and any of those aspects. I'll just say this is as fiercely competitive a business, wireless, as any you know or I know. Just watch, for example, the NCAA, March Madness. Every other ad is an ad for a wireless service, and this business is going to remain fiercely competitive, and this step isn't going to change that. And by the way, prices have fallen 50% over the last 10 years. They're going to keep falling, whether this occurs or it doesn't occur. So I don't see this as changing the fundamentally fiercely competitive nature of the business, nor the pricing curve going down.
I want to, folks, we're going to mix things up today. We're going to go here from political economics with Roger Altman back to M&A, back and forth. M&A is happening in an interesting environment of record cash flows. But here's the shock of the day. Dreaded first chart. Roger, you're going to be able to see it down here. You see it over there. We do not like austerity. The people of Portugal saying, Lisbon, we do not like austerity. What a project run amok when you look at how the U.S. is approaching financial and economic recovery versus what we see in Europe.
Yes, but there's two levels of answer to that. History will show, as you just said, or implied, that the United States reacted forcefully, powerfully, and effectively to the credit market collapse and the Great Recession, and that Europe reacted less forcefully and less effectively, and so forth. I think that's what the verdict of history will be. However, we are also in this country resisting at this very moment a degree of austerity which we are also going to have to embrace here, because you just take a look at the latest CBO revisions on the long-term deficit outlook. It's not tenable. It's not a sustainable thing. We won't actually get from here to the point in 2021 when the CBO says we might have federal debt representing 100% of our GDP. That's levels like Italy and Greece. We won't actually get from here to there. Either we'll solve this proactively, our leaders getting together and negotiating an outcome, which I hope we will, or the global financial markets at some point over the next 3 or 4 years or something like that will intervene and impose a solution on us. But one way or the other, austerity is coming here also.
Do we address that after the election of 2012?
If you were a betting person, you'd probably say that. I would like to think that we would at least put in place a framework along the basics of the Bowles-Simpson Commission report. which would then perhaps be implemented later. But if you were better, you would say we probably will not address this directly until then.
I spoke with Jonathan Golub of UBS, and I asked him his predictions for M&A for the next year.
If you look at what happened last cycle, off of the bottom, you had about a 275% increase in M&A over 5 years. We are roughly in the fourth inning of that process. And what's really important is the acquisitions that are being done right now are extremely productive and accretive.
Jonathan Golub of UBS. I want to talk to you about this and let's bring up the Evercore chart while we talk. What an environment of M&A. How is this cycle shaping up different from what we saw before?
Well, first, I agree with the thrust of Mr. Golub's comment. I think if you look over about a 40-year period, you see that the up cycles in M&A tend to last 5 years, 6 years sometimes. The down cycles 2 to 3 years. The bottom, obviously, from an equity market point of view, is March 2009. I think history will show that that was also about the bottom on merger volume. So we're about 2 years. After all, it's March 2011, 2 years into this M&A recovery, and it probably has another 3 years to go, give or take. And so I agree with his comment. What's really going on now is a virtuous circle, if I can put it that way, or a cycle, which always spells higher M&A volume. You have rising equity prices. You have extraordinarily favorable credit market conditions and financing availability. You have improving business conditions, and those together spell higher CEO confidence, and that's the combination that historically has meant growing merger volume, and that's why we're seeing it.
We had a Wall Street, Main Street rhetoric here for a while. You pushed against that, as did others. Look at this elegant chart. This is normalized profits. You're going to see it down here, Roger. Normalized NEPA profits versus jobs. That white line buried on the zero line down below, normalized back 7 years, where job growth has really gone nowhere. Non-farm payrolls are pretty much where they were 6, 7 years ago, and profits went down, and then, boy, did they bounce back. When does America get the fruits of Evercore's labor?
Well, of course, we're seeing some improvement in labor market conditions now, but it's slow and it's pretty anemic. And this is the greatest challenge our country faces, other than perhaps our fiscal overhang, to revive our labor markets. And while I do think we'll see improved monthly job numbers as the year goes on, it's going to take us 5 years to get the I think it's 8.5 million people that were employed 4 years ago who are not employed now back into the workforce. Right. And the longer that takes, the harder it will be, because so many of the unemployed are now long-term unemployed. So this is a terrible problem, and I don't think we as a nation are doing everything we can on it. Critical
Altman question. Lubrizol, and I don't want to hear details about Lubrizol. You represent them with Berkshire. 6,900 employees out of Wickliffe, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Ohio. Fine. Is the new investment going to lead to marginal job creation abroad? And what can be a public policy to assist private market development of those jobs?
Well, actually, I think from Lubrizol's point of view, Berkshire Hathaway doesn't plan to reduce any employment.
Oh, sure, that's fine.
So, well, the key to improving our labor markets over the long term, Tom, is education. It sounds trite, but it is. And you know, the college completion rate in the United States has been flat for quite a few years now. That's not the case in a lot of other advanced countries. It's about 62%. And if we must get that up, because if you just study the so-called returns to education, income by education level, you see that the importance of higher education has never been greater in terms of employment. And we are living in a world which is not only globalized, but also intensely skill dependent. And as a country, we're not doing what we have to do on education, and we're never going to get to where we really want to be on raising standards of living unless we improve education levels. Here's a chart. I know you've got to go here at your busy day. We showed this first with Bill Gross. M&A and the one-way bet in bond yields. There's an assumption out there, with some rhetoric by Mr. Gross as well, that we're just going to see higher yields. Will that derail the M&A boom, or are higher yields a signal of economic recovery? I don't think there's going to be any derailing of the merger dynamics I discussed a few minutes ago over the next year or two, because yields probably will rise, but slowly. I agree with his forecast in terms of eventually being higher and probably quite a bit higher. But I think that'll be slow, given the slack around the world, economically speaking, the U.S., Europe, and Japan in particular. So no, I don't think it'll be derailed. And in terms of whether his take on that is right from a bond market point of view, I think it is.
I want to speak politically quickly here. Secretary Clinton focused on Libya, and the president focused on a lot of people criticizing him for leadership. Roger Altman, on the leadership we've seen in the last couple of weeks at the White House.
Well, I don't buy this idea that the president is not leading when it comes to Libya. I mean, the United States doesn't have, at least in my view, strategic interests in Libya. We just don't. If you think about the countries around the world where we do, and I don't think that Libya fits into that category. And therefore, to have this no-fly zone and what follows from it not be a U.S.-only approach is the only way to do this. That's the right way to do it, and it takes a while to assemble that. Right. We're seeing right now they still can't agree on how it's actually going to be led going forward, which has other consequences to it, that little inability to agree. But I think Obama's been correct. This shouldn't be a U.S.-only effort, and if it takes a while to manage this around so that NATO or some companion of NATO is doing this and not just the United States, that's the right approach, particularly when you consider how limited the resources of the United States are, both from a military point of view in terms of Iraq and Afghanistan and a financial point of view. We don't want to be enmeshed in Libya.
Very good. Let's leave it there. Roger Altman, thank you so much.